Hi, Rob here with the Real Football Show. This is the second episode, be it a few installments of the second episode. But today our guest will be my son Noah. Here he comes.
Thank you.
Very
Just that guy.
himself. As part of this episode, good to have you on the show.
Of course. Glad to be here.
Today we're going to talk a little bit with the U.S. men's national team. We actually went to their game in Austin a few weeks ago. Not even a few weeks ago, I guess it was just last Saturday. And
2 Saturdays.
2 Saturdays, okay. But with that, a little bit of this discussion, and I'm on a few Facebook pages with fans of the U.S. national team about MLS players versus European players, and a little bit of kind of our insight. Noah's on his way to Spain next month for a La Liga 2 tryout. So a little bit about the difference between MLS versus European players, and how that history has changed. So we're going to get right into that. There's actually a Football League rankings. Goes more than this. This is just 4 pages. Goes down to the number 27th league in the world, and this ranks each league around the world basically on strength of both. It's mostly average strength across the league. No surprise.
Are you doing based off like national team players that are involved?
No, this is
just what are they basing it off of?
This is ratings of each of the teams, and then it's an average of the teams. So no surprise, the Premier League is number 1.
It's probably going to be La Liga, but it could not be. It's fallen off a few years.
Yeah. So Premier League, which is the English league, is number 1. Manchester City, which is the champion again this
City,
year,
Liverpool.
is
You have Chelsea's, Tottenham's coming up, Arsenal's coming up, and we've got 2 young teams coming into the mix.
So you have Premier League number 1, La Liga number 2, Bundesliga, German league number 3, Italy
That's
number
kind of
4.
surprising because most people call Germany the Farmers League.
Yeah.
A lot. It's because Bayern wins it all the time, but also you have to think about the other teams inside the league, which that's why Bundesliga and La Liga. Because you could say the same argument about La Liga because the 3 teams win it every year.
Yeah. Well, and this is what they're doing is they're taking the average that they give each team, and this is each team around the world, a ranking, and then they average it. So that this is when they look at that average, that's what they're coming up with. Now they also list the best team and the worst team in the league. So the best team in the world at this time, based on this ranking, is Manchester City at 93.4. To give you a
What
basis.
time is this? Because they haven't won.
This
they haven't won the Champions League because you have to consider Real. I don't think Real Madrid was the best team in the world at the time they won the Champions League, but it's also hard. It's like when a country wins the World Cup. You cannot put them.
I want to say I think the rankings is maybe a month or 2 old at this.
So it's still.
But it has Bayern Munich, which is Noah's favorite team.
Best team ever.
91.6, so very close to Manchester
If anything,
City.
that's a little too low. I feel like 99 overall should be right. I mean, when you're just as good as us, it's kind of hard.
Yeah, so, and then Real Madrid at 85.5 as the top team in the Spanish league. But to give you an idea,
We're not going off for history of teams.
no, this is
right?
this is
just
as of that point in
just
time.
we're doing season wise or doing over the span of years.
No, this is just as of basically right now. I mean, it might be a month or so old, but so the Premier League is the number 1 league in the world, is 72.98, so basically 73. So that's the average of the 20 teams in the league. It takes you have to go all the way down to the 3rd page, 16th, to get Major League Soccer at 39.48. So basically, it's not half, but Major League Soccer's around half of where the Premier League is, a little bit more. And then most of the top leagues, so La Liga is basically at 70, German Bundesliga is at 69.
So what we're talking about, our argument or discussion today is where would MLS starters be compared to Premier League players?
It's like when you look at Bolt Burkholder and his selections for the national team, and there's some of it comes into, do you really want? There's rest, and they have long leagues and long amounts of time and that type of thing. But you look at it against Klinsmann. Klinsmann was the first coach to really say, hey, we need to get these European players involved in the men's national team. It's important for us to compete. and Noah was, maybe 10, 11 when he first did ODP, which is the Olympic Development Program, which is designed as, although I don't think it really fits into the men's national team that much, is that he was starting to make some pushes. He started, being German, Klinsmann being German, he started going to players that had German American citizenship and basically clearly weren't going to make the German team, and said, hey, you want to play for the U.S., so now you can play for a national team, and made that push. He clearly valued that European influence and was trying to get it, where I think Burkhalter, to me, is going was the other direction. Now, MLS has come a long way. I mean, I went to the '94 World Cup when it was in the U.S. the last time. 4 years from now, we'll have it again.
Do you know U.S. had the highest attendance ever for World Cup?
Well, we have bigger stadiums.
True. I was just saying, and it is kind of funny, especially at the time Major League Soccer was just starting up around then, that people also do call America, they don't like soccer, but they'll come out to something as big as the World Cup.
Well, and people came from other areas, but yeah, I mean that's what people.
There's too many people coming to Qatar for the World Cup. They rent out hotels. You know what they're doing? They're setting up they're like shacks in the desert for them to stay, because there's that many people coming for the World Cup.
Probably be easier if they brought a cruise ship in or something. That would probably make more sense.
The parties will be quite festive in the World Cup time.
And people are going to come in from all over the world for a World Cup and that type of thing. And I think Americans as a whole, we're going to come if we're competitive, and we'll get into this. We're not.
I genuinely think we'll be very competitive by that then. But also, I do feel like this World Cup is a learning experience, because we have a lot. This is going to be a basic. It's not going to be everyone's first World Cup, but it'll be basically everyone's first World Cup for the U.S. men's national
Well, we
team.
didn't make it last time.
We didn't make it last time, and you have to think about it. Pulisic was around a teenager then.
Yeah.
He's a grown man now.
Well, and
He's the team captain.
He's the team captain. He's clearly
the
the best. He's their best player.
Clearly the best player. He's going to be the most experienced player on that team. Wise, winning the Champions League, playing in Champions League finals. I know he didn't play that much. Sorry, before people say anything about that, I know he didn't play that much, but he did play in the Champions League, and he did do a great job when he got Chelsea to this. And he did a fantastic job in the semifinals of the second leg against Real Madrid, and then he scored in the first leg of Real Madrid, so he had an assist and a goal against Real Madrid to send them through to the finals.
Well, and that kind of gets into exactly what I'm talking about. Again,
So he's going to be experienced.
Pulisic is clearly our best player, and part of being that best player, when you look at the Premier League as the top-ranked team in the world, there's clearly 6 to maybe 8 teams in the Premier League that are even above the overall level. Manchester City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Tottenham, Arsenal, Man U is usually there, but they're definitely struggling.
It's probably West Ham right now. Most people thought it was going to be Wolves a few years ago, but it's probably West Ham right now. They did get to the semifinals of the European Cup.
But the point being is, in the Premier League, you have Chelsea, which they finished 3rd, and you have Pulisic playing on that team. And
the problem is, I feel like he just can't find his starting foot, because most of the time he's coming on as a sub. It's like Smith Rowe and Arsenal. I feel like I would relate it to that. He's a good player, but he just doesn't have it. He doesn't have the manager's favor, because Pulisic's a good player. He's just not playing that much.
Yeah, and there's an argument. Hey, should Pulisic move to a lower team in the Premier League where he would start more often? Should he move back to the Bundesliga or something again where he would play more often?
I personally like him at Chelsea.
Yeah.
But also, he does need to play more to get that recognition and get that starting spot, to get stuff going for him. Because a lot of people, especially the U.S. people, ask questions. If you're not starting, why should you be starting for the American teams? But also, it's at the point where you just need to be. It's not more. It's more because you train more than you play more. You have more training sessions. You have 2 training sessions a day. Most of the time, as a Premier League player, and you have 1 game a week. And some weeks you have 0 games.
Yeah. Well, some weeks they have 2, but
yeah, it's just like on average 1. Right. So you're going to get training more. So you have the Steffens, because Steffens definitely a better player than he was when he was at the group, and that's obvious.
Yeah.
Pulisic's definitely a better player than he was at Dortmund.
Well, and I would agree with you, but there's definitely a group of people that because Steffen doesn't play, they're like, oh, he's not playing. Well, he's practicing, like you said, 2 times. And at Manchester City, he's playing against the best in the world. Now, saying that, there's an argument, and we were just talking about this, that Manchester City might be sending Stefan out to somewhere else, either on loan or
I feel
actually
like
selling him.
I do think there is a difference though for a field player to be playing in games than to a goalie, because a goalie is more about experience, especially since he did play out with his feet when he was at the Crew, because every goalie now has to play out with their feet at least a little bit. Even your All Blacks and your Beheads have to play out with their feet.
Yeah.
They're two top goalies, but they're not the best with their feet. It's kind of obvious.
Right.
Like there's probably the top in the top 5 shot stoppers in the world right now, right? Top 5, top 7, ever. But for a goalie, you have to be more experienced in the game playing out with your feet instead of training, because you're not scared to do skill moves, training, and keep passing, and dribbling when you're a goalie. But also you find more stuff in games, because it's more nerve-wracking in games, because I'm a goalie personally. Especially if they do that, because if you make one mistake, goal. Like if you make a mistake as a goalie, 99% of the time it's going to be a goal for the other team.
Well, and you look at Manuel Neuer is probably considered the new prototype best overall.
He set the trend.
He set the trend. He moved it. He's still playing at a high level, even though he's not old in soccer terms, but he's definitely getting older. But there's a whole highlight or low light reel on YouTube of mistakes he's made in games, and that's what's going to happen if you, in learning to do that and then playing with your feet and trying to do certain skill moves, there's going to be times that goes wrong. Just like it does for whether you're Messi or Ronaldo as a field player, there's going to be times that the move doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
The problem as a goalie is when you make a mistake, usually it ends up.
Especially if it's with your feet, you usually make a mistake. Because I've done that. Well, because I've done it about 2 to 3 times that I got scored on because of it.
Yeah.
I probably play out of the back the more than most goalies, but it's also the point. The more you play at the back, the more risk you take, but also the better you get at it.
Yeah.
There's going to be benefits and negatives to anything you do.
Oh yeah, and then I mean Stefan, when he was playing against Liverpool in the cup, one of the cups, he made a bad mistake and it cost him a goal.
Shout out Bonnie. He's going to Bayern Munich, best team in the world.
So, but with that, so back to kind of I guess when I've been trying to think of this and relate it to something, and this is before Noah was born, in the late 80s into the 90s, the men's basketball team had dominated the Olympics. We won the Olympics year after year. We had one time that the Russians won it by a fluke before I was born. They won the 80 Olympics when we weren't there. Somebody else did not. I don't think it was the Soviet Union actually, but somebody else won because obviously we weren't there. But in '88, when we lost again, more of the other teams essentially almost had pro players, and we're still using college players. It became okay. Do we go ahead and step up and get pro players? And they still talk about the '92 Dream Team with Michael Jordan and Clyde Drexler, Charles Barkley, and that type of thing. So we have
Larry Bird on the team.
Larry Bird.
MJ?
But
MJ, Magic Johnson.
Magic Johnson was on that team too, and it's like so you end up with this. So we go from using college kids to this dream team of the best.
They wanted to go to that tournament and dominate.
And they did. They just dominated. Well, to me, using European players versus using MLS players, it's almost the same difference. It's like we're using college-like better players.
Of course, there's going to be some better players than MLS. Like you can say Matt Turner is better than Steph.
Yeah, I mean, there's an argument back and forth. But he's signed with Arsenal. He's going to be playing in Europe.
And the problem with that is he's going there to be a third string.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure if I think Leno will get loaned out somewhere, so he probably will be second string. So I don't see a reason why Arsenal would buy him to get a good goalkeeper to make a third string. Right. So I do think he will be the second string. But he's getting signed on a basis. He's not. I'm not sure if they have it right, but from our point of view, he's signed to be a third string, not a second string. He's supposed to be a third string. And third strings almost never play unless there's an injury or there's usually an injury. There's third.
Well, it's that gets into a separate argument of Stefan's playing with Manchester City and Turner, for at least for now, and Turner's coming into on Arsenal, whether he's second or third string. but either of them aren't first. But when you're looking at Manchester City and Arsenal, you're talking about elite teams in an elite league. Is that better off than playing every day in MLS?
The point is, I'd rather be playing in games. As a player, or especially as I'm young, maybe when I'm older, on my chain, I want to be playing games.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Manchester
And
City's third string goalie is
the thing is-
38 years old now or something.
But the thing is, would you rather? My argument on that case is would you ever be signed out of practice from another team? No. Basically, no. Oh, would you ever be signed in a game from another team? Yes.
Yeah.
That's,
Well, and that's
the problem.
I guess what I'm looking at, and forgetting Stefan
No,
and Turner.
because there's three big teams that you think about if you're at a big club, especially in Barcelona, which is a little lower now,
Yeah.
Real Madrid, and Bayern Munich. Those are three big teams that you dream of getting signed from, basically. Especially Real Madrid and Bayern Munich right now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's people that would love to play for Liverpool, Chelsea, Man City. Man U. Don't get me wrong. That's not what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Hey, there's three teams that they come asking. It's going to be very hard to turn that down. Rudiger at Chelsea is a perfect example of that. He's probably their best center back, maybe their player of the year. What does he do when he's contract up? He leaves and goes to Real Madrid.
Sure.
That's my point. Like if one of those three teams, I mean, unless you're a very loyal player or you're not getting a starting spot, why would you not say no? Why would you not say no in that case?
Yeah. No, you're gonna say, hey, I get the chance to play for an elite
Legacy
team.
teams.
Gareth Bale, who we can get into that, but I mean, when Real Madrid came calling, he almost couldn't turn it down, and then when you can argue about some of
To
those.
be fair, he had the team on his back.
But he's walked into how many Champions League he has now? Is it 5, 4? Okay. So I mean, you can't argue with it to some
Somebody's
degree.
got 5.
I think it was 5, but it's hard to turn that down. Even though, I mean, he was absolutely carrying Tottenham. I mean, that last season with him,
when you think about it, there's not a problem. I know there's gonna be some carry moments like Ronaldo this year with Man U. You're thinking about Messi too, with his last season with Barcelona. There's some carry moments. But I feel like that's top 3 carry moments from a club. Like he got him into around the Euro spot, I believe. He scoring last. There's probably 5 to 6 minutes of him just scoring last minute goals. With his left foot, and all bangers, like all in that top corner, top right, top left spot.
Oh, still, I mean, even the only time he gets to play for right now is with Wales, but he's still scoring free kick goals.
And not to mention, he shows up in big games when he needs to. He played the Champions League final. Ronaldo didn't score that game, which is you don't have to be the GOAT.
Yeah.
He's not the GOAT. Messi's the GOAT. That's not my point. But to play, he wasn't even playing bad. It's just for Bale gets subbed in, scores a bicycle kick, which I personally think is better than his one that Ronaldo's one that against Juventus. I think it was farther out. I don't think it was as good I don't think it was as beautiful as a shot. Like Ronaldo's looked picture perfect. Like you described bicycle kick, how you want to kick it, Ronaldo. But he scores in a bigger game. Ronaldo's game wasn't as big because they were already up 3-0 or something on aggregate, and they scored one more away goal already, so 4-0 on aggregate with a away goal, which the game really didn't even matter, and he scores it. So it wasn't as a big of a game where Bale scores and comes a game and it's the game with a goal. I mean, there's a difference in it.
Yeah, but I can get back to it. Is like you look at it from my standpoint, and was it Josh Sargent who plays for a lower level team in the Premier League this year, but he was playing fairly regularly. He was scoring, and it seemed like Burkhalter he wasn't getting any attention.
No, the thing I feel like
And we don't really have a striker that's consistent at the moment.
McKinney is the one player I feel like he's the only one that's getting regular game time. Pulisic, if he's not injured, he's getting regular game time, which is kind of nervous to me that he's always getting injured. Still, he's like 24 or something like that, I believe. He's around 24. Pulisic is he's getting injured quite frequently, which he really needs to get that under control, because that's gonna yank it from under him if he doesn't get that under control, because he really shouldn't be getting injured that quick.
Well, and that becomes.
And then McKinney's got injured, but he's the only one that I feel like he's been having the most favor from Europe, especially.
Well, I think the look at it from me is if they're getting regular playing time on any team in these top, say, 10 leagues in the world, and we're not, as the U.S. men's national team, if our coach isn't selecting them over the MLS, and you can say whatever it is, and Anthony and I, the first episode, we're talking briefly about this, of, they're trying to push MLS, and that's great. MLS has come a long way, from '94 World Cup to now, MLS has come a long way. If you had this discussion in '94, it would make no sense. But we didn't have a lot of Americans playing in Europe either.
Mm-hmm.
But the MLS, again, not saying it hasn't come a long way, but again, back to the numbers of, you're talking averages for the league in Premier League is 73, La Liga 70, Bundesliga 69, drops a little bit to Italy at 63, and then, like I said, it takes to the third page, and Major League Soccer is 39.5, which means the average team in Major League Soccer is worse than the worst team, Norwich City, in the Premier League. And you're just not getting the same level of players. Again, you've got to get into some, but there are a decent amount of Americans now. I want to say there's probably 50 plus Americans in Europe. Not all of them are playing regularly.
Yeah, that's not even counting the players that are being brought up to the youth teams that are American, or have American heritage.
Well, you're starting to get, La Liga had been one of the plays. We've seen Americans play in the Premier League. Go back to Tim Howard and Casey Keller, and in the Bundesliga and other leagues. La Liga seemed to be the area, especially that Pulisic went through German, through the Bundesliga. He actually went over, I think it's 16.
Brennan's still playing it. Yeah.
But Liga seemed to be the league that was like, oh, we're not bringing any Americans in, or whether they were doing that purposely or just didn't see that they had it. But you're starting to see Americans that are starting to make it into the Liga, into their youth academies, which is, in Europe, that's where they're trying to bring it up. They want to get you into their youth program so they can bring you up through their system. And so you're starting to see that. But again, it comes back to me when, Major League Soccer is just, it's not, while coming up and everything else, do we care about building up MLS, which I think it's doing fairly well on its own by having MLS players? But you've watched, we watch Premier League a decent amount. We share season tickets, actually with the Jacksons, for Austin FC, and it's not the same level. You can clearly watch a Premier League game, and the quality of passes, the consistency of passes, the first touch,
I think
the goalies.
I think the biggest difference, and I feel like this is what separates from the lower level, so especially since my experiences from last season to / this season, is probably my best season I've played soccer-wise. And what's changed the most is probably mentality and decision making. And those are two of probably the biggest aspects of the game, especially because a lot of people, they're pros, they're going to have first touch, they're going to have good stamina, they're going to have good body shape, and they're going to have good technique. The biggest difference between them is decision making and mind games. You have to think. Also, when you get scored on, when you have a bad touch, when you have a bad play, you have to be able to move on from that and go on quickly. Because there's 90 minutes of the game guaranteed, plus more. So you have to think about what is your next option. What are you doing in a game that changes that?
Well, you're a goalie. You're going to get scored on. I mean, not every game, but you're going to get scored on at that point. And are you going to allow that when you get scored on to lose focus so that you get scored on again because you're worried about what happened the first time? You can't. And I guess when I look at it, if we, wherever our current ranking in the world rankings is 10 to 15 or whatever,
I believe we're 16.
I think we're to some degree overranked. But when you look at the team, the teams in the top 6, 8, 10 that really have a chance to win the World Cup: England,
Argentina, baby.
Argentina, Germany, Belgium.
Brazil.
When you look at the players that are on their roster, they're all playing in these top leagues, which means at practice they're playing against elite players. During games they're playing against elite teams, And it's a different level when you look at the speed of play in these top leagues compared to MLS. If we're bringing MLS players to play them, our players just aren't used to playing at that pace. They're not.
Also, do you think the difference? Physicality is going to be a big difference. I feel like for them, because when you go to the Premier League, the first thing that basically players say, especially if you're a new player, they say the physicality is so much different in the Premier League than it is in other leagues.
Well, I mean, Noah grew up playing in South Carolina, and we moved to Texas about 5 years ago. And one of the bigger surprises for me coming to Texas, American football one of the American football capitals of the country, was thinking it would be rougher, tougher soccer, and that's not the case. But for sure, the physicality of the play in South Carolina was much, much higher, and I put that down to the vast majority of the coaches there, not just the ones Noah had, but as a whole, were from England, Scotland, Ireland, Wales. That's just the way they teach it. They teach a very physical type of play. They teach, fouling is okay in certain circumstances and almost expected in certain circumstances.
Well, I mean, you have to. I mean, like with the game of the weekend that I played in, and the players threw on goal, and center back fouls the guy. Most coaches are going to prod that. They didn't score because of that play, because he's going to be one-on-one with the goalie and didn't score. It wasn't a red because it was a friendly, and you got a yellow, but realistically that's a red. And also our coach would praise him for that. Especially since they didn't score on that play. It's like when Suarez handballed in the World Cup in 2010, and they didn't score off the PK, and they moved on to the next round because of that.
And it's that be a smart play. Do you stop a sure goal? And again, penalty kick is the attackers and an advantage, but it's not a sure goal at least. At least it gives them a chance to stop it over a sure goal. I mean, I guess one of the examples I have from South Carolina is when Noah switched clubs to a club that was, again, run by an English group of people. And it wasn't a team Noah was on, but I remember talking to the coach afterwards. He had done a friendly, and then we'd gone home, and then he was telling me one of the lower level teams was playing, and they were getting beat pretty badly, 8-9-0. And so the goalie from the other team was dribbling through their team, and I think he ended up scoring. And the coach was actually, I guess he was less upset about the goal, and other than the fact that nobody fouled him. He's like, somebody should have just taken the other goalie out, and he wouldn't have cared if it was a red card, yellow card, whatever. The goal, he should have fouled. They just foul the goalie. Make sure don't let him embarrass you. Don't let him get the goal anywhere near the goal. And that's just, when you look at it across different leagues, the Netherlands is going to be fairly physical. German league's physical. I mean, all of them are to a degree. I guess the league is not known as being as physical, but it's still going to be more physical than MLS.